Everyone, it's Macro Geek, and I want to talk about the RG552 today. You've probably seen some reviews out. I held off on getting this. I wanted a larger handheld to play on the couch. I was kind of holding out for an RGB Max or RGB10 Max 2, but doesn't really emulate newer systems well. The Max 2 is kind of the same thing as your 351p in terms of processing power, in that it's kind of do some Dreamcast and some N64 well, and not everything. And the 552 gets us up to good 64 and Dreamcast, and not good enough for really GameCube. There's a handful of GameCube games you can kind of do, but it's not really for that. It's catching a lot of flack because at $229 MSRP, and then figure there's some import fees or shipping or Amazon markup, this one can end up getting delivered for nearly, $280. It's too much. It's not that capable with things like the Odin and the Steam Deck coming. But I managed to get this one on sale from someone else who only used it a handful of times, and I'm pretty happy with it. I paid less than what I would have paid to buy a Max 2 off of Amazon. And for that specific use case, it's not bad. So Android OS. Let's talk size comparison, I guess, first. Here's 351p, and there's a 280v. So if it gives you an idea of how much bigger the screen is, but it's definitely not pocketable. This is the kind of thing you keep in your laptop bag, not the kind of thing you keep in your jeans pocket. Here is my OLED switch for comparison. One thing to notice, being a Anbernic handheld, it's a thicky boy. Ports, 2 USBs, one for fast charge, one for data or accessories, headphone jack, some kind of HD out. I think this is mini HDMI, not micro HDMI. I haven't really researched it. The triggers are not stacked. They're side by side, not stacked. We got an air exhaust vent, air intake vent. I think the case is mostly plastic. It doesn't feel metal, feels plastic. Good buttons, good sticks. Basically the same as the 351p. I mean, they feel like that if you've used that. So what most people don't enjoy is that using the shoulder triggers and the analogs, if you're going to do a driving game that requires gas pedal, brake pedal, and analogs, it's not super comfortable in everybody's hands. I have long fingers, so I can usually put 2 behind like that and drive like this, but you wouldn't want to do it for hours. You'd do it for arcade games like Crazy Taxi. Pardon me. Ships with an Android OS. It's Android 7.1. I updated to I forget if they're calling it the 1.1 or 1.2 update, the one that adds key mapping. So if you want to play a touchscreen game, you can bring up, it'll take a second here. You can bring up this on-screen overlay and like drag your buttons around and lock them to trigger touchscreen stuff. But know that when you flash the new updates from Anbernic to this, it wipes out it completely replaces the Android OS. So you'll have to re-download any apps. You'll have to re-log in your Google accounts, all that stuff. There is also a beta build by Black Seraph. That gets it running Android 8.1, which lets you download some newer emulators, but it's a beta. So you have to pay into his Patreon account if you want to access that. I think it's $10 a month. So it might be worth it for you, might not. I know one of the big benefits of Black Seraph's build is he supports exFAT on this card slot, because 8.1 supports exFAT formatted partitions. By default, you have to format everything FAT32. So larger cards, you want to format them on the device and be careful that you don't damage the partitions or formatting when you address them from Windows. So what does it do well? It does Android well. Like if you want to run Redream, M64 Plus, these emulators from more modern systems are much more mature on Android than they are in like RetroArch or Emulate or whatever. They've just spent more time optimizing because they're, retail products for phones that have some cheats and stuff that are making them work better. So, your performance on those will be much better. For retro stuff, The Max 2 is plenty. The 351p is doing plenty fine. I don't test Saturn. I've heard Saturn is hard to emulate and hit or miss even on this. But in my experience, like running Crazy Taxi, no problem. And that's something that just stutters like crazy on the 351p. So we go in light mode here. So for example, Crazy Taxi 1, FPS counter's up. And I don't know if this camera is going to focus well on the actual pixels of the screen. So, but just trust me, the display looks great.
Hey, it's party time. Let's have crazy time.
Oops, wrong button. Confirm with B in this emulator.
Let's go make some crazy money.
And then I went in the menu and remapped my LNRs to the outside triggers instead of the inner ones.
Go ahead and pick that. All right, let's get it on. Hey, it's time to make some crazy money.
And I think B and A were reversed when I first got the emulator. I'm going to turn the music down so I don't get content flagged by YouTube. Oops, let's go forward. I think I need to fiddle with the dead zones on the analog sticks, but I mean, this works. And even works on the using the D-pad. My driving's bad because I'm watching the camera. You can see no stuttering, nice smooth gameplay. Oops, overshot it. Back up. Peeling out. The street scene is where the music and the gameplay always stutters on my 351. So you can see that works great. Being Android, a lot of the emulators have weird, like, gotta swipe up and down. My screen protector's interfering with my finger being red. You can tap this function button down here if you want to bail out. That usually works better. Let's hop over to M64 Plus. Left that running in the background, still running fine. But here we go. Let me turn the music back up. But this is one that's generally fairly hard to emulate and working fine. Some N64 games still have weird black boxes, hitching, just because it's a hard system to emulate. But everything I've tested so far has worked great on here. Now what I'm doing, you can dual boot a Linux OS and use the same ROMs directory over here, but I'm like, why bother rebooting? So I've got RetroArch, and I'm using that for PS1 and below systems. And then I put the XMB skin on it. So let's, for example, do... I was playing this last night. And I believe there's some custom scaling I can put in this to get pixel accurate, but let's see if I can turn the camera in a little bit on that. Oh, shoot. I screwed that up. Well, I got one. But that looks nice and tight. I should probably put some video filters on, maybe some scan lines or something, but just nice, clean output, big, bright display. Controls feel tight. I'm not feeling any weird lag or latency that older emulator handhelds had. So, I mean... yeah, this is overpriced for a, PS1 and below emulator. You could use a Max 2 for that, but it's a nice build quality for that. Genshin Impact, I got it to run. I use the on-screen control mapper, and it kind of works. The camera control mapping to the stick doesn't work as well as just swiping with your thumb, but it's playable. Played a little bit with Game Pass, and the Game Pass app doesn't seem to recognize the inner triggers, R2 and L2. And so I couldn't do like gas pedal in games, and I can't find a way to remap that. And I think I need to try doing the web browser build of that and then use the screen mapper. I'm hoping that comes along in Black Seraph's build, and I'll just switch to that build. But for right now, for me, I got this at a significant discount. I probably paid, got it 20% off from somebody. They said they played it 4 or 5 times and were like, this isn't for me. I got a 64 gig card in here, and then the 64 gigs of flash that are running Android. I updated as soon as I got it, so I didn't have to wipe and reset my system. And then I'm basically doing Dreamcast, N64, and PlayStation on Android emulators, and I'm using RetroArch to do all my retro stuff in one menu, and I'm pretty happy with it. So this is probably going to be my couch handheld. The USB fast charging is great. I can charge the thing from empty, both batteries up in like an hour and 40 minutes on my 30-watt fast charger. So I think it's got a place in the world. I hope that Anbernic has enough built into their build cost that they could maybe mark this down to like $199 or $179. I think $199 is probably reality. I think once the Odin is available to buy in stores instead of just being an Indiegogo pre-order, I think that's going to cause some competition for this. But right now, Anbernic's not feeling the pressure to lower the price. But I think if it gets within reaching distance of the Max 2, it'd be a great handheld. If you can't decide and you just want a bigger screen right now, the Max 2 is probably the way to go. If you just want retro and you don't want N64 or Dreamcast or anything like that, that'd be my choice, because it's like, I think you can get them $129 direct, and then you got to pay shipping, and I think like $179 is what I was seeing on Amazon with the shipping, Prime shipping, and in stock. With this, they're starting at $229, and then I've seen them as high as $300 on Amazon, which is just stupid. So that's my in a nutshell review. I will probably take this from the touchscreen update, which I think was 1.2. I'll probably take it to Black Seraph's build once he gets to a major milestone, because I'm told he's got his back, forward, and everything buttons alias to a corner, so you can hot corner in and then touch a ring. And I think he's got an alias to buttons too. He has your ability to remap between Xbox and Nintendo style confirm and back buttons. And Android 8 Run can run some newer emulator builds that are a little more stable. So that should be a cool opportunity for people when it's fully baked. But I think it's a decent handheld. I just think it's the wrong price. So that's the Macro Geek review at arm's length.